Hey vinyl community, how's it going? This is Bill with the Vinylverse, coming with another video. I thought today that I'd sit down and get through this Vinyl Tag 2018. Watched a bunch of other vinyl community members' videos. It's pretty interesting. The list of questions helps get to know the person a little bit better. So that's what I'm going to do. There's 20 questions, so this could be a little bit of a longer video, so let's get started. Question number 1. First video you ever saw in the VC? Bottom line is I don't remember exactly what video it was. I do recall some of the first channels that I looked at. Super Wes, who else? Vinyl Collector James, Derek Vaughn, Channel 33 RPM, Baraka P Dub. Those are some of the early channels that I started watching. Initially I came to YouTube looking for videos on how to, well, let me start over. Been collecting vinyl since I was a little kid, but like most people, once CDs came along, vinyl got put away. Luckily, I didn't sell my collection, but they got boxed away. Bought CDs, got wrapped up in the whole digital music, MP3s, stuff like that, iPods. And then, I had my vinyl in boxes down in the basement for, once I bought my house, I had a shelf and I had my vinyl on this one shelf, and also my laundry's down in the basement. So every time I'd go down to do laundry, I'd pass by the shelf and I'd walk by my records, and I, kept thinking how much I missed them and would really like to play them again. I didn't have all the same stereo equipment that I had previously, although I did hold on to my turntable. So I kept saying, one of these days I'm gonna get that set up and start to listen to my records again. So then it was right at the beginning of January of 2016. I was like, I'm gonna get my records out and set up the turntable and get back into vinyl. I wasn't really listening to my CDs. Everything was digital at that point, so that was January 2016. So I started to look to YouTube on, my vinyl's been in the basement for years now. How do I clean them up? So I was doing some research, and one thing led to another, and I discovered the vinyl community. I've been, watching videos since that time of the vinyl community, and never really had the courage to do these videos. So finally thought, what the heck, I'm gonna take a stab at doing some videos. Why not? So going back to the question number 1, first video you ever saw in the VC. So channels like Super Wes, Baraka P Dub, Vinyl Collector James, Derek Vaughn, Channel 33 RPM. Those are the initial channels that I recall watching. So, question number 2. Favorite record that you discovered via a VC video? There's a channel, Eat Sleep Vinyl, Teddy in his record room. I really love his channel. He's so thought out on his videos, and the guy just knows his stuff. It's just him, camera looking at him and him talking about records. Just like I said, well thought out. He's well versed, focuses mainly on jazz. And so getting to the question, favorite record that you discovered via VC video, It's this one. McCoy Tyner, Enlightenment. So, one of Teddy's videos, he talked about this album. I've been getting into jazz more and more lately. I've always liked jazz since high school, I'd say. And, you know, big fan of John Coltrane, and for a long period of time, McCoy Tyner was Coltrane's pianist. Never heard his solo work, but Teddy talked about this album, said how intense it was. Something he said just told me I needed to get this album, so I picked it up. I love it. It's a live album. Yeah, it's just great all around. What can I say? It's really, really good album. A little bit of free jazz. I can't recommend it enough. I just really enjoy it. Okay, so number 3, what are your other hobbies? Well, vinyl collecting right now is my main hobby. I spend a lot of my day thinking about vinyl records and music and collecting records, and now making videos. So don't have too many other hobbies. One thing I like to do is I like to barbecue, smoke, smoke meat. That's an art in itself. I very amateur at it, but it's something I enjoy. So when I get to do it, I have a good time with it, and it's going to be spring soon, so the smoker's going to be getting fired up soon. I got a whole bunch of wood for smoking recently, a couple months back. So other hobbies. That's it. I like to smoke food. Okay, why did you start to collect? Number 4. So basically, the reason why I started to collect vinyl is just that I love music. I'm born in 1971, so I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and that basically was the format. Of course, there was 8-track tapes, cassettes, but in my house we always had records. No one really in my house, including my parents, really played music all that frequently, but we had some records. But I was the one that always was drawn to it. Something about the vinyl record, the disc itself, it's like magical. How does this thing play music on this little stylus that runs in the grooves? Still don't quite understand it, but it's always fascinated me. And then, of course, look at the covers. Look at the artwork and the liner notes. It's a whole story in itself. Not only the music, but then you got the covers, the sleeves. I remember getting records out at the library and just laying in my bedroom and staring at these covers and listening to the music while reading the liner notes and just looking at the artwork. So I think that answers it. It's just always fascinated me, and I just love music. Always have. So that's it. Let's see, what number are we on? Number 5, do you play an instrument or are you in a band? I do. I play the drums. Haven't been able to for quite some time now. My drums are packed up away in the basement. When you have kids, they take up space. You collect things for the kids, toys, baby swings, pack and plays, you name it. Just stuff takes up takes up the room. And right now, currently, there's no room to have my drum set up, but I do. I play drums. Especially back in high school, I was pretty good, I'd say. I had a couple paying gigs, doing plays and orchestra type stuff, and even bands. Ever work in a record store? Number 6. No, never did. Would have loved to. Let's see. Number 7, favorite album from the year you were born. Okay, well, I did grab my favorite album, but I also grabbed a couple other, I guess you could say, honorable mentions. So I was born in 1971. 1971. And lots of great albums came out that year. I grabbed 3, including my favorite. The first is The Moody Blues, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor. This is a really good album. Moody Blues are great. I'd say more recently I've been really getting into them. Always liked them, always liked the hits. But dusting off the records and, going to my local record store and thrift shops and stuff, if I see a Moody Blues record that I don't have, pretty much have all the main ones now, I pick it up. So this is a favorite of mine, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor. Love the artwork. Moody Blues is a band that always has strong artwork on their covers. Probably my favorite song off this one is the hit, The Story in Your Eyes. One thing I love about the Moody Blues is how every member wrote and sung, including Graham Edge, the drummer, who wrote a lot of the poetry that you hear on Moody Blues records, and he would recite them. But very interesting how John Lodge, Justin Hayward, Ray Thomas, and Mike Pinder would all sing together, or they'd take lead on their own songs or certain songs. Very interesting band. Anyway, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor. One of my favorites from 1971, the year I was born. And then there's this. I'm sure everybody's familiar with David Bowie, Hunky Dory. First of all, I love the cover artwork. It's great album. David Bowie, another one of my favorites. Of course, Changes is the biggest song on here. But yeah, this album is just fantastic. Really enjoy it. Life on Mars, I think, is my favorite song on this album. I remember hearing that and not knowing what it was when I was just kind of blown away. It's like I must have had it on repeat over and over and over and over and over again. I just loved it so much. Still do. So, came out in 1971. Now, my favorite album from the year I was born. Genesis, Nursery Crime. As I've stated in my other videos, Genesis is my favorite band. I love all era Genesis. This album is when the band really started finding their way. The Musical Box is one of the standout tracks on this song. One of their best songs. Love it. And look at this artwork. really, really cool. It depicts a scene of this girl, Cynthia, playing polo, and she starts chopping people's heads off with the polo stick. um, Fantastic record. It's my favorite from 1971. Okay, what classic record have you never heard? Number 8. So, there's a bunch, but one of them that came to mind, and I've been meaning to just sit down and listen to this because I know what a classic album it is. Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. Of course, I know the song What's Going On, but I've never sat down and listened to the full album. So I'll have to pick it up or stream it, but I'll probably pick it up at some point and sit down and listen to it. I know it's a classic album. Okay, number 9, show a guilty pleasure record. Okay. Should preface that everything I have I like in my collection. You know, I'm not embarrassed about anything in my collection. So, guilty pleasure. I guess I took that to mean as like some people might scratch their heads at like, why do you actually have this in your collection? But anyway, I chose Hooked on Classics. So in the early 80s, this was huge. Great way to introduce classical music to people that really aren't into classical music because it's got a beat behind it and, you know, some synth. So, you know, every once in a while I'll throw this on and I enjoy it, you know, making breakfast, throw it on, and it's a fun album. Put it on recently, a couple weeks ago, and my daughter was dancing all around. She's 5. So, you know, it's fun for me. So, guilty pleasure. Hooked on Classics. Number 10, Strangest record. So this was kind of hard. I didn't really think of anything in my collection that's strange, but I did pick out something that I would guess no one really knows. But this is Larry Ferrari at the Mighty Wurlitzer Pipe Organ. Now, Larry Ferrari, I'm from the Philadelphia area, right outside, about 20, 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia. So growing up on Sunday mornings, this guy Larry Ferrari would have a half hour where he would play an organ, and that was it. He would just sit there and play songs. He was a staple on Sunday morning television in Philadelphia. This album was recorded in 1953. I actually don't know what year the album came out. I haven't been able to find out what year it was released. But this is good. It's a Wurlitzer pipe organ. I think it's recorded in Detroit. Yeah, Detroit Theater Organ Club. It's on Shore Records. That's who pressed it. Never heard of them before, but if you think of carousels or merry-go-rounds and the music that you hear when you're riding a merry-go-round, this is what this is. But it's fun. I guess you could classify it as strange because I'm pretty sure that most people in the vinyl community probably wouldn't have this in their collection. I could be wrong. Maybe you do. But anyway, this is what I picked for number 10, Strangest record. Okay, number 11, Show a Picture Disc. All right. So this is the the Force Awakens soundtrack, and it's a 2 album set with pictures on each of the sides. This was given to me as a gift for my birthday. Yeah, for my birthday. The year after The Force Awakens came out. So I'm a big Star Wars fan. A perfect age for when Star Wars came out. It's always been my favorite series of movies. So, this isn't the best sounding album, but it's cool to have Star Wars The Force Awakens picture disc. Alright, best posthumous release. So, I chose the John Lennon collection. Came out in 1982, 2 years after he was murdered. This is also kind of a sentimental record for me. So when he was murdered, I was 8 going on 9. Yeah. And it really hit me hard. I wasn't, I knew the Beatles. I didn't know them individually, but I knew the Beatles and loved them at that age. So when he was murdered, I remember hearing the news, and I was very, very, very upset, even though I had no idea who he was or even that he was in the Beatles. But I started hearing his songs on the radio, getting ready for school. My mom would have the radio on, and then, especially right around the time he died, they would play a lot of John Lennon, and I fell in love with his music as well, and, shortly after realized that he was a member of the Beatles. His death really thrust me into loving music even more. Don't know why, but anyway, so this came out in 1982, and I got this for Christmas that year, and this was all I listened to for a long, long, long time. I think my family probably got sick of me playing it, but it's what I chose for best posthumous release. So John Lennon collection. So, number 13, what artist do you impulsively collect? Already mentioned Genesis, so I collect everything that they put out. I don't have the last studio album that they put out when after Phil Collins left. Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford recruited another singer named Ray Wilson, formerly of the band not Rumpelstiltskin, but Stiltskin. The album was called Calling All Stations. I don't have that on vinyl, but of course I have it on CD. But yeah, I impulsively collect them. All their solo stuff. I just did a video the other day on Tony Banks' new album, 5. It's a classical record. You can check that out if you want. But yeah, Genesis. And there's other bands, yes. King Crimson. Other bands that I also impulsively collect, but Genesis is the one for this list. Okay. Number 14, Best Blind Buy. Now, I forgot to pull the album out. It's upstairs. And my wife is sleeping right now, so I don't want to go up and disturb her, but it's an album called McDonald and Giles. And I was aware of the album for a long time, never really heard it. I may have checked it out a long time ago, but I didn't recall the music or um, know any of it for certain. But McDonald and Giles are two members of the band King Crimson's first album. Um, After they released their first album, In the Court of the Crimson King, the band basically broke up, and McDonald and Giles went out on their own, put out this album called McDonald and Giles. And if you like In the Court of the Crimson King, you would most likely like this album, McDonald and Giles. You could tell that they were involved within the Court of the Crimson King, the way their album sounds. Some of it would be considered maybe psych, along the lines of early Pink Floyd, but a little more musical, I guess. It's a really good album. I enjoy it. I'll slide in a picture here, or I may have already done that. But McDonald and Giles, that's my favorite. Blind Buy. Excuse me. Number 15, a blind spot artist. So this was kind of tough for me to answer, but I did think of a few bands, and the one I'm going to go with is Roxy Music. So I know, I know some of their hits. And of course, I know Brian Ferry, but I'm not very familiar with Roxy Music's songs. I've seen their album covers, and I know that they're well respected. People have a lot of great things to say about them, but to me, it's a blind spot artist. I don't know much about them, don't know the music. I'll probably start digging into them at some point. Okay, now number 16, your favorite album cover. So this was a hard question because there's so many great album covers. So I did narrow it down to one, but I picked out 5 total to show just because I love album artwork. So I didn't bring any of the Beatles albums, but they have very iconic album covers, as you know. A lot of the jazz albums have very iconic covers, and I just love, especially the Blue Note releases. They're so well done and just so cool, in my opinion. But anyway, I grabbed a few to look at. Peter Gabriel Plays Live. I mean, how awesome is this album cover? Peter in early 80s when he toured, he still donned some makeup for his shows, much like he did in his days with Genesis in the early 70s. I just love this cover. There's even a better picture on the inside. Just so cool. I remember back in high school drawing this picture in a copybook or something. I was just so fascinated by this picture. Still am, actually. And I love Peter Gabriel. Okay. Also, everybody shows this one. King Crimson and the Court of the Crimson King, which I already talked about a little bit. What an iconic album cover. It just draws you in. You don't know, what is this person or thing afraid of? But I just love the album itself, and the artwork itself is just amazing. Next, I showed this in a earlier video, but Gentle Giant, Three Friends. Such a cool album cover. Gentle Giant. There he is. There's the Gentle Giant holding the band in the palm of his hands. Very cool cover artwork. Haven't seen anyone mention this, but Elias of Sunhillow by John Anderson. I just love this artwork. It's like, fantasy. Reminds me of Lord of the Rings a little bit, and just great artwork. John Anderson, of course, of Yes. This was his first solo album, Elias of Sunhillow. And then finally, of course, it's Genesis again, with A Trick of the Tail. Now, Genesis is one of those bands, in my opinion, that just has great album covers, especially the 70s albums. The later ones, I think they got a little weaker, but look at this album cover. This is A Trick of the Tail. Came out in 1976. These characters are all depicted in the songs, the lyrics. But awesome album cover. It's my favorite, one of my favorites. I could have picked so many more albums to look at, just because there's such great album covers. Okay, number 17, A Musician You've Met. So, being a drummer, I have many favorite drummers, but to me, the top of the list for me is Bill Bruford. Bill Bruford started out in Yes, moved on to King Crimson, played with Genesis for a tour after Peter Gabriel left and Phil Collins moved out to the front of the stage. Needed a drummer to fill in. Toured with them, played in a band called UK, played in several other bands, had his own band called Bruford, started a jazz band, played in King Crimson again. I just love the guy. He's got his own sound. You can pick him out like that, at least I can. He's been cutting edge. He was probably one of the first to use electronic drums. He's just excellent at odd timing, and he excels at odd timing, and again his unique sound. But anyway, 2010 he released a book, on an autobiography, and he did a small, book release tour, and I don't exactly know how many dates he did, but he showed up in bookstores. I think it was only like a dozen times or 10 times in the States, and luckily enough, he came to my area. I couldn't believe it when I found out that he was doing this. What he was doing is he was talking about the book for an hour or so, and he would read passages and tell stories and take questions and then have a book signing. So lucky enough, I got to see him in 2010. I got the book. He signed it. Here's a picture of him signing it for me. So that was a real highlight. Getting to meet one of your heroes. So he was, he's since retired from music. he actually went back to school, got a doctorate in music science, something like that. And he's a doctor of music now. He doesn't perform anymore, but he's the best for me. I meant to show this earlier, but this is one of his solo records. It's called Bruford. It's a great late 70s record. This is actually a white label promo. Oh, you can see that. Gold stamp. It's a great jazz fusion prog record. So Bill Bruford, it's a musician I've met. Okay, number 18, show a record with sentimental value. Okay, so as I said, at a young age, I was, I would be the one in the house listening to music. I think it was 1976. My family ordered this record. I still have it. And I played this thing to death. Still a big fan of the group. This is the Monkees. It's a compilation put out by RCA. I don't know what involvement the band had in it, but I was familiar with the TV show. Of course, that was on reruns. I loved that as a little kid. And I just love this album to death. I recently played the vinyl, and it's beat up, but this is a sentimental value. I would just throw on the headphones and sing away while the records would play. So little 5-year-old, 6-year-old me listening to the Monkees. Okay, number 19. Your favorite album no one else seems to know about. Well, sticking with the Monkees, Mike Nesmith. He had a lot to do with the introduction of country rock. After the Monkees, he started a band called the First National Band, or Mike Nesmith and the First National Band. They had 3 releases, and this was the first one, called Magnetic South. Love this record. It's hard to find, but I'm really happy to have it, and I have the other 2. They're red, white, and blue. So this one's blue. The next one is red, and the following one is white. And the names of those are Loose Salute and Nevada Fighter. This, I think, is the best of the 3, or it's my favorite, but they're all good. If you like country and, pedal steel guitar and good songwriting, you need to check this out. Mike Nesmith and the First National Band. He's a great wordsmith, great songwriter. I was lucky enough to see him live several years ago. He has been out of the spotlight for a long time, but past few years he's been getting back out there. He just had a few dates that he resurrected the First National Band and played several dates. Called it the First National Band redo, I think, something like that. Not the same people, because a couple of them passed, and the other members, stated they were too old to do any kind of touring. But he had other great musicians. Mostly played out west, like Texas, where he's from. And he's going out on tour with Mickey Dolenz, also of the Monkees. They're not using, well, I guess they are using the name Monkees, but it's called the Mickey and Mike Show. I do have tickets to go see that. I'm excited. Coming in June. But anyway, long story short, favorite album no one else seems to know about. Mike Nesmith and the First National Band, Magnetic South. Okay, I feel silly because I forgot to pull this album out too. Favorite album of a genre that you don't know well. So, I got it. Soul music. So, I know a lot of the hits of the Temptations and Four Tops and Marvin Gaye and stuff like that, but I wish I had it here to hold. I'll put up a picture. Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin Now is a really, really great album. I bought it not knowing too much about it. I knew some of the songs on it, and You Better Think. Pardon me. So I'm looking to get more into soul music. I think it was Jeff Kempin did a soul music mixtape for Andy's Vinyl Den's 777, the mixtape contest. So that got me thinking that I don't know much soul music. I'd like to get into it a little more. So Aretha Now, that's the album. Favorite album I have of a genre I don't know well. So that's the 20 questions. This is a long video. I had fun going through these and thinking about the questions, and yeah, it was a good exercise. I watched a lot of the videos last year for Final Tag 2017. I really like those questions too. And I thought about actually, even though it's 2018, actually doing those questions as a video. I don't know, maybe that's silly to put up a video now of Final Tag 2017. So, I don't know, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. But that's it. Hope you guys learned something about me or my tastes. I'm enjoying doing these videos. I know by no means am I good at it. Not like most of you guys and girls that partake in this. So I'm finding my way. Like I said, I'm enjoying it and hope to do more. So that's it. Vinyl Tag 2018. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you just stumbled upon this and you found it interesting, hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up, a like. Yeah, that's it. So Bill from the Vinylverse signing off. Take care, everyone.